Welcome to another episode of Growth Marketers Podcast. I'm Solomon Timothy.
And I'm Taylor Rowe. As Solomon mentioned, welcome back. If this is your first time listening, we'd appreciate it if you go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening right now, and just give us a like, subscribe. We aim to continue to provide you guys with valuable content. So if you have questions or topics you want us to cover, comment or go to our website, oneims.com/podcast. Send us a message. Today's episode, we chatted about ROI, right? ROI is a huge topic when it comes to marketing specifically. People want to know, if I'm investing into this, I want to see an ROI.
Right.
And for whatever reason, which we kind of dive into in the podcast here, with marketing, that's even heightened. People want to see an ROI as quickly as possible. They want to start seeing that, needle move. And even if they say that they kind of understand, like, well, I know that,
it's going to take time.
Marketing takes time. But I know it takes time, but my situation's a little different. I want to see something relatively quickly. So we talked about some of those misconceptions, what your expectation should be. And it's definitely not that marketing is not going to get you an ROI. I would almost guarantee you that if you invest into digital marketing and you follow the correct process, that it's guaranteed that you'll see an ROI and that it can work and it can be profitable and it can be very scalable and sustainable for you. The timing is the aspect that I think is a big concern for a lot of people. So you have to be realistic with what you can sustain in terms of an investment, for how long, and really what you're getting into when you're searching for either an internal marketing team or outsourcing to an agency. So again, hope you guys enjoy this podcast. And if you have any questions, reach out to us.
All right. So Taylor, today's episode, we're talking about, the ramp up time for any businesses as they're trying to, do their marketing, whether internally, hiring an agency, a freelancer, a consultant, whatever that might be. How much time should they have? What's that runway?
Right.
Before they can start seeing results? And also, how should they look at it? Right. How should they go about thinking about it so they don't get disappointed maybe?
Yeah. That's a common question that we get a lot. We work with businesses and they're either considering hiring internally or working with us or working with another agency for, consulting on a project. And for some reason, not all business owners, right? But a lot of times business owners or marketers within an organization, I think probably because you've seen success either with a competitor or at a previous business you worked at or owned.
Right.
From a digital standpoint, because everything is digital, it seems like a little bit intangible, which makes it seem a little bit easier to accomplish. So a lot of times you see the outcome, and we've talked about this in the past, you see the outcome and you don't see the work that goes into it.
Sure. And what's below the mountain?
Yeah,
exactly. Below the water.
Yeah, the iceberg, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like, okay, you see that success, and you see the even case studies and those sorts of things on the ROI and the time. But what you don't realize is that it maybe took 10 campaigns that failed before you got to that one that succeeded, right? So the overall ROI wasn't, 1,000 to 1, right? And the other thing is, a lot of times when you do those calculations, they're not accounting for your internal marketing team or the overhead or, any of that kind of stuff, right? So the sales team that it took to actually close the deals that come in. So what we kind of wanted to talk about in the idea with this podcast is just to provide some context and to be realistic, right? With the, full disclosure, we are a marketing agency. We work with a lot of businesses, and this is something that we tell our clients because we want to be completely honest with them
and transparent
and let them know that, yes, there may be some quick wins depending on your situation, but a real marketing campaign, a real, not even want to call it a marketing campaign, because what businesses, choose to work with us for and what they're trusting us with is growth of their company, right? Lead generation, customer acquisition. And so when we talk about growth, real sustainable growth, long-term, that's profitable. That's there's no silver bullet. There's no quick fix. Even though that, we have specialists and we have experts and we have senior level marketing consultants that are building out these plans and, executing on these strategies, it's a partnership and it's a long-term process. And what, you're buying into and you're partnering and working with us is the framework, is the process, not necessarily the individual tactics, right? And so those individual items, they're going to shift, they're going to change. Marketing, the landscape, technology, the consumer is all changing so fast. We've never seen it before, right?
Can't believe how fast it's moving.
So you have to understand that, and you have to have a process to adapt and continue to progress. And so whatever worked with your last client, or whatever worked at your last company, it might not work anymore. Whatever you did last week might not work this week, right? Sometimes it's like trying to capture lightning in a bottle, and it's just not possible. So I say all that to just kind of put some, some context around what we're talking about today is how long does it take to see a return on your investment? What should you think about? And I want to use a couple of comparisons to try to explain why you might not be seeing the results that you're looking for. So does it sound good?
Yeah, it sounds terrific. And I think this is one burning question that we've been tackling internally, and I'm glad that we're finally going to chat about it. And it's like you said, it's not just one side of the story. Like, I know how to do marketing and I can generate leads. If the leads don't close into sales, it's really not the marketing guy's fault. No. There's a lot of pieces to make a business successful. Right. Even if you close the sale, do you have the people to do the work, right? Whatever the company might be, like there's so many pieces a business need to really maintain. That's why this is a long-term thing, because we can't fix all the aspects. They need operations managers probably, right? Like delivery people, whatever that is.
That's a great point. There's a lot of variables that are outside of the control of the marketer, the marketing team, the marketing agency. And I think maybe the common misconception is that it's because it's digital, because it's intangible, it's easy, right? And a lot of times you're asking somebody to say, hey, I think we have the opportunity to go from a $1 million company to a $10 million company, or 10 million to 100 million. And, I want to do it in 2 years, or whatever that time frame is, or I want to do it in 6 months, right? If you were to look at that and ask, someone who is a business owner, who is an entrepreneur, and say, hey, you built you went from a 1 million to a $100 million company, right? Do it again, and do it in half the time, or do it in a quarter of the time. They would probably say, I had to work 24 hours a day for 10 years before, you know what I mean?
That's true.
And for some reason they are successful, and no one's arguing that point of like, hey, this is a successful entrepreneur in terms of business. They know what they're doing. And now that they've gone through that experience, they do have some shortcuts, and they have some things that they would have done differently probably the second time around. And that's really what you're getting when you're hiring a marketing agency, right? Or you're hiring an experienced marketer to do it internally. The advantage you get is they're not learning on your dime, but it doesn't mean that the hard work aspect goes away. And it doesn't mean that there's still not maybe a learning curve or a testing period that you kind of have to go through. And that's kind of the biggest point that I want to get across. And one way to look at it is kind of, where is your starting point? Because, so many of the times in companies are coming to us, this is sort of their first foray into marketing. And the idea is that I don't know anything about marketing, so let me just work with an agency, which is possibly a great idea. But at the same time, you need to understand what you're getting when you're getting an agency, right? So if your starting point is that, where you maybe have a website, but you don't really have you've never done any marketing, right? You have no idea of what that kind of funnel, if you will, looks like in terms of where you have existing traffic, what percentage of traffic converts into leads, how many of those leads turn into customers. We don't have a CRM in place, maybe no marketing automation. We don't have active social media following. So, in that case, if you were to flip that and say you were hiring a salesperson, right? So let's just look at those two comparisons. Say, let's hire a salesperson, and how long is it going to take for you to see a return on your investment, right? Well, if you already have a CRM, you already have a sales process, you already have technology for gathering leads, or maybe you have inbound leads coming in, maybe someone's taking over a territory of an old salesperson, you have email scripts, you have product knowledge, you have all these things that you can equip your salesperson and say, hey, here's what we sell, how we sell it. Here's success stories of other salespeople that have done this well at our organization. And maybe here's even some of their clients. Yep. And then we're going to work with you and get you ramped up and get you up to speed. And probably realistically, you'd say, it might be 6 months before you can go off and do it on your own, right? And that is, you already have a process. You already have done this successfully in the past. You're hiring a salesperson, paying them a salary, all for 6 months before you're anticipating them to even produce anything that is, either going to get you an ROI or possibly even just fill their own pipeline up before they start making sales. So I think that's pretty commonly accepted and well known in the industry. But when it comes to marketing, we're asking the same sort of timeline in terms of seeing an ROI, or even shorter with way less of that, that starting criteria, right? Because on the sales side, like I said, you're putting them into a position where you already have a CRM, you already have a sales process, you already have product knowledge, training.
And if you don't, you give a longer window saying we don't have a CRM. So let's go find the CRM. That's 4 weeks. Let's go build a system. That's another 4 weeks.
And that's probably what you see more often, right? Is on the marketing side, you go to an agency and you're expecting them to work miracles, because it would be like going and hiring a VP of sales and saying, hey, I want you to take over the sales. And like, okay, great. Who are your salespeople right now? Like, well, we don't have any salespeople.
Right.
Okay. What CRM are you? We don't have a CRM. What's your sales process? We don't have a sales process.
We don't even have a script.
We don't know. Well, what are we selling, right? What's our competitive advantage? What is our, sort of positioning statement? Yeah.
What's our differentiation?
We don't have that either, right? So you don't have any of that, and you want me to come sell for you, and you're giving me 3 months. You know what I mean? And so now I have to, like you said, I have to find the CRM, I have to hire salespeople, I have to create the process.
I got to create demand.
Process. I have to figure out what's going to work, fill a pipeline, and then start generating sales all within 3 months. Even the most experienced salespeople might
they're not even going to sign up for it.
Shy away from that opportunity, right? And so a lot of times as marketers, we are put in that position where there's no marketing technologies in place. The website is outdated. There's no tracking. There's no traffic. We've never done any campaigns before, so we're not really even sure who our ideal customer profile are, or our buyer personas, and what messaging resonates with them. We've never done any testing. And so when you ask someone to do the impossible, if they tell you, okay, no problem, like we can do that, they're either lying to you, or they've never done this before. They never failed, right? And if you've never failed running a campaign, then you don't really know what it takes. You kind of just got lucky, right?
That's true.
So whenever we take over a campaign, that's the first step that we have to kind of analyze. Where are you at today? What does your current marketing efforts look like? What is that getting you in terms of return on investment? What are the quality of the leads that are coming through, the quality of the traffic? And if you don't have any of that, you need to first build a framework, build the foundation or
the starting point.
Yeah. Okay, let's fix the website. Let's fix maybe the bottom of the funnel. So any traffic that is coming to the website, let's make sure we're providing a great user experience so that they can find the information they're looking for. Add forms and CTAs to the website so that they can actually convert, and have a process in place to send those leads to the salespeople, work and talk with the salespeople to understand what is the quality of those leads and where they're coming from, set tracking in place, and then go back to the top, right? And so then go back and say, okay, well, now we're whatever little bit of demand we're capturing so far because of, we've had a website for 10 years, but we've never really done any marketing. So now how do we go back to the top of the funnel and then create some more awareness, create some demand, right? Rather than just capturing that. So all of that, it's not to say, you hire an agency and they tell you something like that. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. The thing is, they know exactly what they're doing, and they know realistically, this is not a 1 month project. It's not a 3 month project. It might be a 3 year project, right?
It's not even 12 months.
Yeah. It might be a 3 year project.
And it's also dependent on how fast they can move. It's really like, there's a lot of companies that can move quick, and there's, I think, many more that just, can't execute. It could be that they're overwhelmed with their own
talking about the internal marketing,
team and the leadership team or whatever, right? Like if IT can't get something together, it's only hurting their growth opportunity.
Yeah, great point.
And we're all in this timeline, but we want to help make this a reality, of course. And the longer you wait, the more you're going to get crushed, or the faster you're going to get crushed. And there's that window that you really need to get it together. And so if it takes 12 months too long, then it's really not, anything you can go back. I think in this world, 1 month is the equivalent of like losing 6 months of time. Yeah. Right? Like think about it. SEO doesn't happen overnight. So if you waited 3 years to start, it's going to take you a lot longer to catch up. We just
talked about it. It might be a 3 year plan that you're on in terms of, hey, here's where we are today. Here's where we want to be in 3 years. And so you look at your competition, and just like we said earlier, if you just look at the most recent outcome, right? And you see, they're starting to take off. The last 3 months, they've really been taking off. So we need to start now. We're only 3 months behind.
Not really.
Well, it might have took them a year to get to that.
The foundation.
You're a year and 3 months. And now, like you said, that growth that they're seeing now because they put in that work and they've already separated themselves, that is almost an exponential sort of that hockey stick style curve. So it's like now that they're seeing the progress, like you said, 1 month is 6 months and 2 months is 24 months. Like it just continues to grow. So that's another, it's a great point because we talked about having the right expectations if you're hiring an agency or even hiring internally. And there seems to be a lot more pressure on hiring an agency, which I get because that's the advantage of, working with us. That's the way that we position ourselves, is that we're going to cut down on a learning curve. We've done this 1,000 times. We are, experts as much as we can be experts in a field that's changing every 5 seconds. But you still have to be, it's not a miracle worker, right? And the point that you made about how fast can the company move internally, that needs to be something that you need to figure out. What happens a lot is that I see that clients realize that, and then it's like, you're driving and you turn one way and then you overcorrect and turn the other way. I see that a lot, because then the reaction is, well, we're not ready yet. We don't have the internal process. We don't have internal people. So let's wait until all the conditions are perfect, right? And let's find and hire a content writer, and let's hire an internal VP of marketing, and let's fix our website first, because we don't want to send traffic to a website that's not ready. So then let's find a developer and all these things, and they start adding up, and then other priorities come into play, and you just never. I see that a lot, and people don't make that move, and then it's even worse off than if you were just moving slow. So
that's true.
I think you need to be realistic with what an agency is going to do for you. And probably most importantly, find the right partner, right? Find somebody that you believe you can work well with, that there's going to be open lines of communication and honesty, just like we're saying right now, of not someone who's just going to tell you what you want to hear, but tell you the truth. And sometimes that truth is, hey, we need to scratch this idea and we need to start over. It's going to take 6 more months. So be willing. I mean, if you're making this investment in your own business and your growth, then be willing to make the investment. I don't think you can dip your toes into the water when your competition is going all out.
And I think one more thing too, I think that foundation is so critical, because sometimes, like you mentioned, a lot of people are trying to make a website do something that it can't. Yep. Sometimes, you're investing 12 more months of money into that website. It's better to have thrown it away.
Cut ties, yeah.
Exactly. Throw it away and start with something that can be scaled, because not only are you wasting money every month, you're also losing time in building it, right? So it's like putting a lipstick on a pig. Just like, oh, this website, like we're just so married to this site. Like we love it. It's like perfect. And everybody who's go there like compliments us. Like that's all great, but this isn't going to help you scale. This is not going to help you scale. The foundation or the theme or the template, whatever that might be, the CMS, it doesn't matter. It's just not going to help you scale. And we see that we see that as a red flag, and we're very upfront, but people are married.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, is just being married to an idea.
That was 10 years old.
As marketers, we have to kind of put ego aside, right? And we come up with a great idea or what we think is a great idea. If it doesn't work,
it doesn't work.
Or it might have worked, right? And that's the other thing, is like, just because it worked in the past doesn't mean it's going to work in the future. And so you might have a great website, or you had a great website that worked for 5 years and it did its job, and you reaped the benefits of that investment, but it's time to move on, right? You don't have to stay tied down to that. And like you said, keep investing money into a something ship.
Yeah, it's really not.
Yeah.
So having that, and I think would be one start. And then also figuring out that back in the day, we were okay with getting an email notification when a lead came in, because that's how we did. We would call that person. Yeah. Today, you're not going to get them even if you call them. So there needs to be a different way to communicate with every single person that comes in the door, in a process that isn't going to break just because a person isn't at their desk. Right. Do you know what I'm saying? And a lead isn't going to get lost, because to me, every bit of traffic and leads count.
Yeah.
Because you never know who's going to be the one that is going to close business to make their numbers at the end of the year. So kind of leaving it up to the individual or the salesperson or the sales manager or in an Excel spreadsheet is kind of hoping. And hope is not a strategy.
Right. Yeah. So just to kind of summarize the conversation, right, is you started with the question of how long does it take to see an ROI? What kind of ROI can I expect? Mm-hmm. And I guess to summarize, it all depends on the starting point, right? And I use the analogy or comparison of a salesperson or a sales team, because that line of marketing and sales is becoming
more
blurrier and blurrier.
It is.
And the reason is because sales has changed and marketing has changed, and they're all based on providing your customer, whoever that is, with more information, more data, a better user experience. And when you're marketing to them or you're selling to them, you're not really doing either. What you're doing is facilitating their sales process, right? And they're going to make a decision one way or the other to buy your product or not buy your product. And your product, if you have a product, the product or service is to provide value to them, right? The reason that you're selling something to them is that you're going to make their life better. You're going to make their life easier. You're going to drive them more revenue. Whatever your service is, you're going to save them money. And so what you're trying to do is illustrate that from a marketing perspective and from a sales perspective. Again, you're just facilitating that sales process, and you're giving them information and educating them and helping them make a decision. You're not, the old school style or tactic of sales where you're just, pounding them on the head until they make a decision, right? So I think we have to look at that comparison and be more realistic a lot of times with the marketing, especially when you're starting from scratch. Like you said, the starting point, the foundation, something we need to understand. If we don't have that, it might be 6 months just to put the foundation in place. And then you can start, kind of trying to ramp things up or at least test. And, it's like build the foundation, then start testing, messaging, strategies, channels, budgets, spends, look at the outcome, iterate, get to a metric that makes sense in terms of what is your cost per lead or cost per acquisition. And then you can scale. So that's really the biggest difference. If you were to come to me and say, hey, I need help scaling this campaign and I need you to scale in the next, 3 months. If you already have those first 2 steps in place, I would be more confident in telling you yes or no, this can happen. But what happens far too often is we've decided we need to invest in digital marketing or marketing in general. Our competitors are, beating us in this aspect. So here's my budget. Here's what we can do. I need to see some results in 3 months. And that's, it's missing the point again, because you have to look at it in the sense of where's the foundation, we run some tests, and then we can scale. If we don't have any metrics, you can't make any decisions from a marketing standpoint or even a sales standpoint from, today's day and age without having some data to support that. And you can't really make any projections either based on, how many deals you're going to close or how many leads you're going to generate. Even though you've done this 1,000 times, you can't make those assumptions because everyone is different.
It's true. Even 2 companies in the same niche, they end up getting 2 different results just because they may have a different, it could be 2 different sales process. It could be, they could differ on price and so on, right? So it's like, no matter how many campaigns you've done in the same exact thing, it doesn't necessarily mean that the revenue is going to be there. I'm trying to distinct the lead and the marketing where it ends to the revenue, because oftentimes they're saying I need results. They're not saying I need leads or something or make my traffic increase or whatever. They're saying I need money in the bank after I close the deals. Right. There's already we're already talking 2 languages. We have a
3-month sales cycle. So it's like, you need to give me a lead tomorrow. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So I always differentiate when I'm on conversations like, hey, there's 2 pieces here where there's the marketing front. And I'm not your salesperson. So we have to figure out what that's like, because they both are really, really equally important.
Yeah. And that's kind of the harsh reality sometimes where, business owners or, executives don't want to hear that it's going to take time, right? Because you want to instill confidence, right? If you're hiring a marketing agency, you want that agency to be confident that they can get you the results, but you also have to be realistic.
It's true.
In the sense of like, there's no silver bullet when it's marketing or it's sales. There's no subject line that you can send from now to the end of time that's going to get 100% opens and replies. And there's not one line that you can say on your sales, call. Right. There's not one proposal that is going to be the proposal of all proposals that's going to win every single deal, right? But for some reason, we're expecting that in marketing. It's like, well, what works for your other clients in this industry? Or, I want to, what messaging here or what messaging there? It's not the details. It's the process in the system that you're buying into. When you're hiring an experienced marketing agency, you're buying into their process and their system that yields results. The system is build that foundation. It is run these tests. It's understand the audience. It's look at how do we create demand and awareness? How do we capture existing demand? How do we segment and nurture those leads once they're actually in the sales process? And then how do we measure everything, both in terms of those sort of micro conversions along the way, as well as the return on investment or the actual revenue that's coming from that. And like you said, a lot of times there is a learning curve from the salespeople, even because this is a new process for them. So when you work with us, you're buying into, again, that system and that process where we're going to work together and we're going to figure out exactly what we need to do to capture the demand, exactly what we need to do to create awareness, exactly what we need to do post-conversion to segment and nurture and manage these leads that are coming through, and what should happen on the sales side as well.
Correct.
None of that is the same from one client to the other. The technologies are different. The personnel and salespeople are different. The product, the industry, the service, everything
sales
is
cycle.
unique.
Right.
So you can't get caught up in that idea of, I just need somebody to come in and tell me what to do, without the realization that anyone who's really experienced should tell you that they don't know what to do. They should tell you that I know the process to get to the answer, but you're never going to know the answer. Sometimes we're surprised by what the answer is, but we stay consistent in that process.
And methodical.
And it's a scientific, it's a methodical approach to marketing. And again, it's changing every day.
When is the best time to plant a tree?
I'd say about 20 years ago.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say, right? It's the question that you as the entrepreneur should be asking, like, well, when should I have bought this thing? Or when should I have done that? It was 20 years ago. When is the next best time?
Yeah, right. That's the key. It's not that, well, I should have done this.
Right.
I should have done that. I should have bought this stock. I should have invested in my website then. I should have done SEO here. I should have done PPC when it was only 10 cents a click.
Or email marketing when everybody opened it.
You didn't. So what can you do now? Because again, the beauty of, and I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but the beauty of digital marketing is that it's changing so fast. You can use that to your advantage. Like, yeah, I missed the boat 10 times. There's a new boat. There's a new platform. There's TikTok and this and that. It's like you can, there's going to be something tomorrow. So you're behind, but if everyone else stays the same, you can catch up and surpass them because you never know what's coming.
True.
So you just need to pay attention. You need to listen to your audience, your customers, your clients, pay attention to the trends that you see across the industry, and then strike.
Execute. Yeah. Right. That's a great place to stop this episode. Thanks, man. Appreciate all your insight. And if you have questions, as usual, send it in to catch us. Go to oneims.com/podcast. We'd love to hear from you. And we're probably going to do some more Q&A in future episodes. So thanks a lot for listening. We'll see you next time.
Growth Marketers is brought to you by OneIMS, helping you reach new heights through integrated marketing. One world, one web, one IMS.